Carrie Underwood stood backstage at the Grand Ole Opry, her hands wrapped around a warm cup of tea. The crowd roared as the previous performer finished their set, the energy vibrating through the wooden walls of the historic venue. It should have been a perfect night. Another standing ovation, another flawless performance. But tonight, something was different. As she glanced at her phone, she saw a flood of notifications. Fans, friends, and industry colleagues had sent messages, all pointing to a single moment on a late-night liberal TV show. The host, Trevor Langley, a longtime critic of country music and conservative values, had taken a jab at Carrie's latest performance. But this time, he didn't just mock her voice or her song choice. He tore apart her character. Ladies and gentlemen, Carrie Underwood performed last night, and let me tell you, it was, well, let's just say dogs across America were howling in protest. The audience chuckled, but he wasn't done. I mean, she sings about faith, family, and freedom, but come on. Doesn't she know this is 2025? We've moved past all that outdated nonsense. Carrie's heart pounded. She had faced criticism before, but something about this hit differently. It wasn't just about her music. It was about her beliefs, her values, the very things she had built her career on. She had worked too hard, come too far, and inspired too many to let this go unchallenged. That night, as she took the stage, she sang with more passion than ever before. The audience erupted in applause, but Carrie's mind was already set. This wasn't just about her. It was about standing up for every artist, every believer, every American who had been ridiculed for holding on to their faith and values. As Carrie Underwood walked off the Grand Ole Opry stage, the standing ovation still echoed behind her. Her hands trembled, not from nerves, but from the fire burning inside her. She had spent years in the industry, facing skeptics and critics, but something about Trevor Langley's attack felt different. It wasn't just about her performance. It was a direct assault on who she was and what she stood for. Carrie sat in her dressing room, scrolling through the flood of social media reactions. Her fans were outraged. At Country Fan Forever, Carrie Underwood is a legend. This Trevor Langley guy just proved why Hollywood doesn't respect real artists anymore. At Faith and Freedom 2025, mocking someone for their faith? Really? Carrie has done more for people with her music than that host ever will. Her phone buzzed. It was her husband, Mike Fisher. You okay? His deep voice carried concern. Carrie sighed. I'm fine. Just tired of this nonsense. You don't sound fine, he said. Carrie, this is getting personal. He didn't just insult your music. He insulted what you stand for. She nodded, gripping the phone tighter. I know, and I can't just let it slide. Mike was silent for a moment. Then he said, Then don't. Carrie's mind raced. She had always tried to take the high road, ignoring cheap shots from celebrities and media figures who saw her faith and patriotism as easy targets. But she wasn't just representing herself anymore. She was a voice for millions of people who felt silenced. Her manager, Nicole, knocked on the door and peeked in. Carrie, I need to talk to you. Carrie put the phone down and motioned for her to come in. Nicole shut the door and sat across from her, concern etched across her face. I just got a call from your legal team, Nicole said. They saw the clip from Trevor's show. This wasn't just some late-night joke. He went beyond comedy. His words were slanderous. You have a case, Carrie. Carrie leaned back, exhaling sharply. A lawsuit? She had never been the type to get tangled up in legal battles. But maybe this wasn't about a lawsuit. Maybe this was about sending a message, one that people needed to hear. She looked Nicole straight in the eyes. Then let's do it. The decision was made. She was going to fight back. The next morning, Carrie Underwood's legal team drafted an official lawsuit against Trevor Langley and his network. The charges? Defamation and intentional infliction of emotional distress. By noon, the news had exploded across every major media outlet. Carrie Underwood files defamation lawsuit against liberal TV host Trevor Langley. The reaction was immediate. Social media was in a frenzy. Supporters rallied behind her, while critics accused her of being too sensitive or unable to take a joke. But Carrie knew this was bigger than her. Trevor Langley wasted no time responding. On his show that night, he smirked at the camera. "So, apparently, I hurt Carrie Underwood's feelings," he said, feigning sympathy. "Sorry, princess, but last time I checked, we still had free speech in this country." The studio audience laughed, but outside the walls of Hollywood, the response was different. Americans across the country, especially country music fans, saw this for what it was. Another attempt by the elite media to tear down anyone who didn't fit their mold. Country radio stations began showing their support. "We stand with at Carrie Underwood. It's time we push back against this culture of mockery and disrespect." Faith leaders, fellow country artists, and even political figures voiced their support. Carrie, however, stayed quiet. She had said what she needed to say through her lawsuit. Now, she let the storm rage around her. But behind closed doors, she was preparing for something much bigger. Carrie Underwood sat at her kitchen table, sipping her morning coffee as she watched the media storm unfold. News anchors debated her lawsuit on every major channel. Some defended her, saying Trevor Langley's remarks had crossed a line. Others dismissed her as just another celebrity who couldn't take a joke. Her phone buzzed constantly. Messages from fans, fellow musicians, even pastors and political figures expressing their support. But Carrie wasn't in this for clout or sympathy. She had a bigger mission now, to take a stand against the culture of mockery and disrespect aimed at people of faith and traditional values. Her attorney, Daniel Reeves, called. "Carrie, the network's legal team reached out," he said. "They're offering a settlement. They want this to go away." Carrie exhaled slowly. "How much?" $7 million. She nearly choked on her coffee. $7 million? They think this is about money? Daniel chuckled. "That's exactly what I told them. I assume you want to reject it." "Absolutely," Carrie said firmly. "I don't want their money. I want accountability." Daniel sighed. "That's what I thought you'd say. But Carrie, this could get ugly. They'll dig into your past, twist your words, try to make you the villain." "I'm ready," she said. "I didn't start this fight, but I won't back down now." As she hung up, her husband Mike walked in, reading something on his phone. "You need to see this," he said, handing it to her. It was a headline from a major Hollywood entertainment blog. "Trevor Langley's team prepares counterattack. Accuses Carrie Underwood of playing the victim card." Carrie sighed, shaking her head. She knew this would happen. The media elites would try to frame her as weak, as someone seeking attention. But what they didn't realize was that Carrie Underwood wasn't a victim. She was a fighter. She opened Twitter and typed her first public response since the lawsuit had been filed. "Standing up for yourself doesn't make you a victim. It makes you strong. And I won't back down." Hashtag faith over fear. The tweet exploded instantly. Within an hour, it had been shared over 100,000 times. The battle was on. Carrie's stance sent shockwaves through the entertainment industry. Some country artists immediately stood by her. Luke Bryan, Miranda Lambert, and Tim McGraw all posted messages of support. At Miranda Lambert, proud of at Carrie Underwood for standing her ground. No one should be mocked for their faith and values. But not everyone in the industry was on her side. A-list pop stars and Hollywood elites rushed to defend Trevor Langley. At Billy J Music, it's called comedy. If you can't handle a joke, maybe don't be in show business. Some even accused Carrie of using the controversy to promote her career. A well-known liberal TV analyst sneered on air. Carrie Underwood built her brand on middle America values. She needs this lawsuit to stay relevant. Carrie shook her head as she watched. It was infuriating. She didn't need attention. She didn't need drama. She had spent nearly 2 decades earning her place in the industry through sheer talent and hard work. But as much as the attack stung, the support meant more. Faith-based organizations rallied behind her. Churches across the country held special events dedicated to standing firm in faith, using Carrie's story as an example. Her fan base, loyal and unwavering, turned this into more than just a lawsuit. It became a movement. Carrie had ignited something bigger than she ever expected. And the world was watching. The courtroom showdown begins 3 weeks later. Carrie walked into a packed courtroom. Cameras flashed outside as reporters shouted questions. She ignored them, keeping her head high as she entered the building with her legal team. Trevor Langley was already inside, sitting confidently at his table. Smirking like this was just another late-night joke. But this wasn't TV. This was real. And Carrie was about to make sure he never mocked her, or anyone like her, again. The courtroom was silent as the judge took his seat, adjusting his glasses while glancing at the high-profile names before him. Carrie Underwood sat poised, her expression calm but firm. On the other side of the room, Trevor Langley leaned back in his chair, still wearing the smug smirk he had perfected on late-night television. Carrie's attorney, Daniel Reeves, stood first. He walked confidently to the jury, making eye contact with each member. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, "this case is not about comedy. It is not about free speech. It is about defamation. It is about a deliberate and malicious attack on a woman who has done nothing but inspire millions with her music, faith, and values." He gestured toward Carrie. "Ms. Underwood has built a career based on honesty, talent, and hard work. But Mr. Langley decided to go beyond comedy. He sought to destroy her character, to belittle what she stands for. And today, we ask you to hold him accountable." Carrie felt a sense of strength wash over her as Daniel spoke. He was right, this wasn't about a joke. It was about respect. Trevor's attorney, Mark Calloway, stood next. "Ladies and gentlemen, this lawsuit is ridiculous," he said, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "My client, Mr. Langley, is a comedian. He is a late-night host. He makes fun of everyone. But suddenly, because Ms. Underwood didn't like what was said, we're all in a courtroom." He chuckled, shaking his head. "This is about power. Carrie Underwood is a massive star with influence, and she wants to silence someone who dared to poke fun at her." Carrie clenched her jaw. They were twisting the narrative, making her seem like the bully when she had simply defended herself. The judge cleared his throat. "All right, let's proceed with the evidence." And just like that, the biggest media trial in entertainment history began. Part 8. The media frenzy intensifies outside the courthouse. The world was split in two. News anchors debated the case endlessly. Was Carrie Underwood standing up for herself and her values, or was she suppressing free speech? On social media, hashtags trended. Hashtag Stand With Carrie and hashtag Langley Was Right battled for dominance. Fox News called her a brave woman taking a stand against Hollywood hypocrisy. CNN suggested she was overreacting to a harmless joke. Even late-night hosts jumped in, with Stephen Colbert joking, "Well, I guess we can't even joke about country music now. What's next? A lawsuit for calling grits too lumpy?" But beyond the media spectacle, something deeper was happening. Pastors across the country spoke about Carrie's courage. Parents told their children about standing up for their beliefs, using her as an example. Country radio stations played her songs on repeat. Concert ticket sales skyrocketed. But Carrie wasn't thinking about any of that. She was thinking about the truth. And the truth was about to come out in court. The courtroom was tense as Daniel Reeves stood up. "Your Honor," he said, "we have obtained exclusive behind-the-scenes footage from Mr. Langley's show that sheds light on his intent." A TV screen flickered on, showing a grainy recording from the set of the Trevor Langley show before it aired that night. The room went silent as they heard Trevor speaking off camera. "This one's gonna hit hard," he laughed. "Carrie Underwood's fanbase is full of Bible thumpers. They'll go nuts. Watch the outrage explode on Twitter. It's free publicity, baby." Carrie's heart pounded. This wasn't just about a joke. He had planned to attack her, knowing it would cause a media storm. The jury members exchanged glances. Even Trevor's smirk faded for the first time. The judge nodded solemnly. "Proceed." Trevor Langley was about to learn that some battles weren't meant to be fought with cheap laughs. The courtroom remained in stunned silence as the leaked video finished playing. Carrie Underwood sat still, her heart pounding. This was it. The proof was undeniable. Trevor Langley hadn't just made a joke. He had premeditated a smear campaign, using her as a pawn to stir controversy and boost his ratings. Trevor shifted uncomfortably in his seat. The smug confidence he had displayed throughout the trial was gone. His attorney, Mark Calloway, quickly stood up, attempting to control the damage. "Your Honor," he said, forcing a grin. "This is taken out of context. Mr. Langley is a comedian. Every late-night host prepares their material with an audience reaction in mind. This doesn't prove malice. It proves strategy." Carrie's attorney, Daniel Reeves, stood up immediately. "Strategy?" he echoed. "Your Honor, let's be clear. This wasn't just an offhand joke. Mr. Langley deliberately targeted Ms. Underwood, not for humor, but for outrage. He wanted her fans to react. He wanted this controversy." He turned to the jury. "And when someone weaponizes their platform to destroy a person's reputation, that is not free speech. That is defamation." The judge nodded. "The jury will take this into account. Proceed with the next witness." Trevor's legal team looked shaken. The case had just taken a major shift in Carrie's favor. Outside the courthouse, news of the leaked footage spread like wildfire. Leaked video proves late-night host targeted Carrie Underwood for publicity. Carrie Underwood's legal team scores major win as courtroom gasps over secret footage. Carrie's fans erupted in celebration. But the battle wasn't over yet. Trevor Langley wasn't going to go down without a fight. The next morning, as Carrie walked into the courthouse, she noticed an unusual tension in the air. Reporters weren't just talking about the leaked video anymore. Something else was brewing. Her phone buzzed. It was Nicole, her manager. "You're not going to like this," Nicole said, her voice uneasy. "What is it?" Carrie asked, stepping aside for privacy. Nicole hesitated. "Trevor's team just released an article about you." Carrie's stomach dropped. "What do you mean?" "They're trying to discredit you," Nicole said. "They dug up old tweets, old interviews, anything they could twist. They're saying you've made your own political statements in the past, trying to claim you're just as guilty of offending people as Trevor." Carrie exhaled, frustration boiling inside her. This was classic media strategy. When you're losing the fight, attack your opponent's credibility. She opened her phone and saw the headline, "Carrie Underwood's History of Political Statements. Hypocrite or Hero?" The article pulled quotes from past interviews where she had spoken about her faith, her belief in traditional values, and even times she had supported veterans and first responders. "They're making it sound like I'm a political activist," she muttered. Nicole sighed. "It's a smear campaign, Carrie. They want to make this lawsuit about you instead of what Trevor did." Carrie nodded, steadying herself. "Let them try. I know who I am, and I'm not backing down." Inside the courtroom, her attorney was waiting. "They're playing dirty," he said, handing her a printout of the article. "But we expected this." Carrie smiled faintly. "Then let's finish this fight." As she took her seat, she noticed Trevor Langley glance at her from across the room. His eyes held a glimmer of desperation. He knew he was losing, and Carrie Underwood was ready to deliver the final blow. The trial was coming to its climax. The jury had heard the arguments, seen the evidence, and witnessed the media firestorm surrounding the case. Now it was time for closing arguments. Carrie's attorney, Daniel Reeves, stepped up first. He looked at the jury, speaking slowly and deliberately. "This case is about more than a joke. It's about accountability," he said. "Mr. Langley used his platform not to entertain, but to tear someone down. He admitted, in his own words, that he sought controversy for attention. He wanted backlash. He wanted outrage." He glanced at Trevor. "But actions have consequences. And today you have the power to remind people, celebrities, politicians, media figures, that words matter. That targeting someone for personal gain is not protected under free speech. It is malice." He turned to the jury. "Justice is in your hands." Trevor Langley's attorney stood up next, his tone defensive. "Ladies and gentlemen, I remind you, this is comedy. If we start punishing people for jokes, where do we draw the line? Ms. Underwood is a public figure. She's no stranger to criticism. This lawsuit is nothing more than an attempt to silence voices she disagrees with." The jury sat in silence as the judge gave final instructions. Then they were dismissed to deliberate. Carrie took a deep breath. This was it. The world was watching. Would justice be served? Trevor Langley ordered to pay $25 million for defamation. Reporters crowded outside the courthouse, eager for a statement. Carrie, ever the professional, stepped forward. This was never about silencing anyone, she said. This was about standing up for respect. People deserve to be treated with dignity, no matter their faith, their values, or their beliefs. The crowd erupted in applause. Trevor Langley, however, refused to comment. His show was immediately put on hiatus as the network scrambled to do damage control. Some Hollywood elites rushed to his defense. Others, seeing the public backlash, distanced themselves from him. Meanwhile, Carrie's victory resonated beyond the courtroom. Churches celebrated, praising her for taking a stand. Country music fans saw it as a win for artists who had long been mocked by mainstream media. Even those who disagreed with her saw the verdict as a turning point in the entertainment industry. Carrie returned home that night, exhausted but at peace. She hadn't just won a lawsuit, she had started a movement, and the world was listening. Trevor's fall from grace. Trevor Langley tried to salvage his career. He appeared on a special interview, attempting to paint himself as the victim. This was a political hit job, he claimed. I was just doing my job, making jokes. Now I'm being punished for it. But the public wasn't buying it. His ratings plummeted. His sponsors pulled out. The network, facing immense backlash, made an official statement. Effective immediately, the Trevor Langley show has been canceled. For the first time, Trevor Langley was experiencing what it felt like to be truly silenced. And Carrie? She didn't gloat. She didn't mock. She simply continued doing what she had always done, using her voice to inspire, to uplift, and to bring people together. A song of strength. In the weeks that followed, Carrie Underwood poured her emotions into a new song. It was a ballad about resilience, about standing firm in the face of opposition, about refusing to let the world define you. When she performed it at the CMA Awards, the entire audience rose in applause. She wasn't just a singer. She was a symbol of courage, of faith, of never backing down. And the song? It became an instant anthem. Carrie's lawsuit set a new precedent. Media figures thought twice before attacking someone's personal beliefs. Networks became more careful about what passed as comedy. It wasn't about suppressing free speech. It was about bringing back respect. Years later, legal scholars would reference the case as a turning point in celebrity defamation law. Carrie, however, didn't dwell on it. She had never been in it for the headlines. She simply wanted the world to know, you don't have to stay silent when you're wronged. You don't have to let the world trample your faith. And if you stand your ground, truth will always prevail. Part 19. A final lesson. Sitting on her porch one evening, Carrie watched the sunset, reflecting on everything that had happened. Her husband, Mike, sat beside her. Do you ever regret it? He asked. Taking this to court? Carrie shook her head. Not for a second. She turned to him with a smile. If we don't stand for what we believe, who will? Mike squeezed her hand. You changed things, you know. People won't forget this. Carrie looked up at the sky, peace in her heart. I didn't do it to be remembered, she said softly. I did it because it was right. And sometimes, doing the right thing is the most powerful legacy of all. Part 20. The final words. Years later, when Carrie Underwood looked back on the trial, she didn't remember the court dates, the headlines, or the media battles. She remembered the people who had reached out, thanking her for inspiring them. She remembered the songs that came from that experience. She remembered that through it all, she had remained true to herself, and that was the greatest victory of all.